There's something fascinating about human behavior, the way emotions hide in the smallest gestures, the subtlest movements. Sometimes it's not the words he speaks, but the way he glances at you when you're not looking, the pause before he touches your hand, or how he lingers in silence when you're vulnerable. That one gesture, the one you keep replaying in your mind, it matters more than you think. You see, the subconscious mind never lies. It communicates what the heart tries so hard to hide. And when a man is truly emotionally connected, his body reveals it before his mouth ever does. It could be in the way he leans in when you're speaking, how he notices the tiny changes in your tone, or how he instinctively mirrors your emotions. These are not coincidences, they are deeply rooted neurological patterns. Modern psychology tells us that true emotional bonds trigger something powerful, limbic resonance. It's a silent frequency between two hearts, where gestures become language. If he holds eye contact just a moment longer when you're opening up, that's not just politeness. It's a silent confession. His nervous system is responding to your emotional state, and that's something he can't fake. Most people miss these signs because they're looking for loud declarations. But the truth is, a man reveals his truest feelings in quiet ways. Does he remember your smallest stories? Does he shift his energy when you're sad? That moment when he unconsciously adjusts his posture to comfort you, that is the moment his guard drops. His gesture may seem small, but it's a neon sign from his subconscious. When a man is emotionally invested, his gestures sync with your presence. He might stand closer without realizing. His voice softens. He shows responsiveness instead of reaction. These are not just habits, they are signs of emotional imprinting. In neuroscience, we call it neuroassociation. His brain has paired you with emotional meaning. When we search for truth in a relationship, we often look in the wrong places. We wait for eloquent words, grand declarations, or perfectly timed compliments, believing that love, when real, will be loud and unmistakable. But the human heart does not always speak in poetry. It trembles in silence. It speaks in the spaces between words. And more often than not, it is the body that reveals what the mind is afraid to confess. A single gesture, unnoticed by most, can be more honest than 1,000 carefully chosen words. Think about this. The body is governed by the unconscious. While the conscious mind constructs sentences, hides vulnerabilities, and curates impressions, the body simply reacts. It mirrors truth. When a man feels love or emotional intimacy, his body becomes a map of his feelings. He doesn't choose this response. It emerges naturally because the nervous system always tells the truth. The way his eyes linger a second longer than needed, the way his hands tremble when you're near, the instinctive lean towards you when you speak, these are not rehearsed. These are unfiltered windows into his emotional reality. A philosopher once said that the truest self is the one that cannot be controlled. The unconscious gestures, the muscle memories, the patterns of movement, they are the raw, unedited footage of the soul. When a man truly feels something deep, his cognitive filters can't completely mask it. His body speaks in tremors, in glances, in spontaneous acts of attention, and it is in these fleeting moments, these small, almost invisible gestures, where his truth is whispered to those who are attuned enough to listen. Imagine standing before someone you care about deeply. Your body knows before your mind catches up. Your breath slows when they look into your eyes. Your heartbeat changes rhythm when they reach for your hand. You don't plan these reactions. They are biological, deeply emotional, and profoundly revealing. Now realize that this same system is at play within him. If he feels something real, something tender, something vulnerable, it will escape in his movements. He may not tell you what he feels in words, but he cannot stop his body from telling the truth. Psychologically, we are wired to recognize subtle, emotional cues, microexpressions, posture shifts, changes in voice tone. Yet in a world obsessed with verbal clarity, we overlook this ancient language of the body. We forget that when a man fidgets while talking to you, it's not nervousness, it might be the fear of being truly seen. When he remembers a small detail you once casually mentioned, it isn't just a good memory, it could be evidence of emotional investment. That one gesture pulling you closer when you're quiet, shielding you from discomfort, unconsciously adjusting his pace to match yours. These are emotional breadcrumbs. And this brings us to the second, more profound truth. The subconscious behavior that spills from him when you are near is not random. It is deeply rooted in the emotional centers of his brain. When a man begins to emotionally attach to someone, his limbic system becomes activated. This part of the brain is responsible for emotional regulation, bonding, and memory. It begins to encode your presence as something meaningful, possibly even essential. And once that happens, his behavior starts to change effortlessly, automatically, subconsciously. He starts anticipating your needs before you voice them. He becomes sensitive to your emotional fluctuations. He may mirror your body language, echo your tone, or adjust his gestures to bring comfort. These aren't tricks or strategies. They are neurological responses to emotional bonding. In psychology, this is known as emotional attunement. His nervous system begins to calibrate itself around your emotional state. He doesn't think about doing this. He just does it. This is why it's so important to observe, not what he says, but how he exists in your presence. If he opens up his body, turns his chest toward you, makes eye contact, leans in when you're in pain, that is his vulnerability showing up without words. If he recoils when you express deep emotion, or stays stiff when you move closer, then his body is telling you he is emotionally unprepared. These subtle movements are expressions of his truth, revealed not with intention, but with instinct. From a deeper psychological lens, his gestures are also shaped by his attachment style and emotional condition. A securely attached man will unconsciously move toward intimacy and emotional openness. He will touch with reassurance, look with safety, respond with empathy. An avoidant man, however, will display gestures of distance, arms folded, eyes averted, body leaning away, not because he doesn't feel anything, but because feeling deeply frightens him. His body becomes the shield that protects his inner emotional world. But even in avoidance, there are cracks moments where he cannot help but care. Maybe he brushes a strand of your hair away, or his eyes soften when he thinks you're not watching. Those brief, unguarded gestures are glimpses into his internal conflict. And if you are wise enough to see them, not romanticize them, but observe them without illusion, you will gain clarity, not only about what he feels, but about what he is capable of giving. The human psyche, when in love, begins to behave differently. It seeks connection, not just through conversation, but through presence. When he feels something for you, his hands will find excuses to reach for yours. His breath will synchronize with yours. In moments of quiet, he will subconsciously face you when you speak. These are not conscious choices. These are deep, emotional truths, manifesting through the body's unconscious language. So many women ask, how do I know how he truly feels? The answer lies in the unspoken, the gesture that lingers, the silence that feels full rather than empty, the absence of distraction when you're in the room. If his subconscious behavior leans toward you, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's unplanned, that is where his truth lives. Do not let the world tell you to only believe the words. Watch for the moments he forgets to perform, the moments his body acts before his mouth can filter. That's when you see who he really is, and how deeply he might already feel for you. There is a silent conversation, always occurring between two emotionally connected people, a dialogue that transcends words and logic. This invisible language is carried not by sentences, but by energy, glances, shared silences, and subtle shifts in behavior. It is called limbic resonance, the emotional attunement between two nervous systems. This phenomenon, deeply rooted in neuroscience and emotional psychology, explains how one human being can feel deeply understood, even without explanation, in the presence of another, and it is in this resonance where emotional truth is most clearly revealed. When a man feels something real, something unfiltered and emotionally significant for someone, his nervous system begins to mirror the emotional environment created between them. His heart responds when hers is aching. His body tunes itself to the rhythm of her presence. He doesn't logically decide to do this. It happens involuntarily. This is the power of resonance. It's why you sometimes feel instantly safe with someone,
without understanding why. It's not magic. It's nervous system chemistry. It's emotional vibration, speaking louder than verbal assurance. In such moments, the gesture becomes a vessel of meaning. The way he leans toward her during conversation, how he instinctively reaches out when she's quiet, how he slows down to match her pace, or adjusts his tone when sensing her vulnerability. None of these actions are taught. They emerge from the resonance of the limbic system, which detects safety, affection, and emotional need long before the conscious mind processes what is happening. This resonance is nature's way of telling us, this is someone you are emotionally aligned with. It's primal, it's biological, and it is unmistakable. Yet so many fail to recognize it. They focus on spoken promises and ignore the way his presence feels in a room. They analyze the content of messages, overlooking how his eyes soften when he watches her speak. But it is in these micro moments that the truth emerges, the emotional truth that he may not be ready to say aloud will still echo in the way he stands guard beside her, in the reflexive protection he offers when she's in discomfort, in the unconscious smile that escapes when he hears her laugh. This is limbic resonance. In motion, it is his soul reaching out, even when his words are still finding courage. And then there is the pause, that sacred pause before he touches her shoulder, in reassurance, that split second, when his gaze doesn't just look at her, but looks into her. These pauses are filled with more honesty than most sentences. They are emotionally charged, because they are unguarded. In that pause, he isn't performing, he's responding, and the body only responds in such ways when it feels safe, connected, and emotionally drawn. This leads to a deeper understanding of the next layer, the idea that gestures are not simply physical movements, but profound emotional disclosures. The way he moves around her is a code, a language of affection, comfort, and emotional investment. When a man begins to care beyond the surface, his gestures take on new dimensions. He stops being performative and starts being instinctive. His body becomes a home for expression. A glance becomes a shelter. A hand on the back becomes a lighthouse. His physical presence becomes a sanctuary, where her soul feels seen, without asking. In psychology, this behavior aligns with what is known as attachment signaling. It is how mammals, including humans, demonstrate emotional availability and investment. These signals aren't intellectual, they are deeply rooted in early emotional blueprints, shaped by past experiences, traumas, and unhealed emotional landscapes. But when someone transcends fear and truly connects, these attachment signals show up unmistakably. He becomes present, not just physically, but emotionally, energetically. He stays during her storms. He remains consistent, even when she's not easy to understand. He soothes with silence. He holds with stillness. And all of this is communicated through small, consistent gesture. Consider how profound this is. A gesture as small as covering her hand with his can say, I see you, I'm here. You are not alone. These aren't just comforting actions. They are declarations made in a dialect older than speech, and even more revealing is how often he does it when no one else is watching. That's where the authenticity of the gesture lies, not in its grandeur, but in its sincerity, not in the moment it gains applause, but in the quiet space, where it's just two souls speaking through their bodies. This is why real emotional intelligence lies in observation, not interrogation. You don't need to ask what he feels, just watch what he does when you are vulnerable. Watch how his body behaves in moments when love demands presence more than poetry. Does he step closer when you falter? Does he instinctively protect your boundaries? Does his gesture calm your nervous system? These are the things that reveal love, not as a word, but as a lived experience. And in those moments, you'll begin to feel something rare, safety, that does not need explanation. That is the magic of a gesture born from emotional resonance. It is not something you teach, it is something that emerges when two hearts are beating in dialogue, when two nervous systems are dancing to the same emotional frequency. It is the soul's native language, spoken fluently only by those who dare to feel deeply and watch closely.
There is a profound difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is immediate. often unconscious, rooted in the ego's need to protect, defend, or assert. But response arises from presence. It is thoughtful, slow, emotionally aware. When a man is emotionally invested, truly attuned to the heart of another, his behavior shifts from reaction to response. He begins to feel before he acts, to sense before he speaks. This is not a calculated change. It is a natural evolution of the emotional mind when it begins to prioritize another's emotional world alongside its own. You see, when we care deeply, our nervous system doesn't just exist in isolation, it becomes porous. It absorbs the energy of the one we love. We start noticing their silence as loudly as their speech. Their joy feels like our own heartbeat. Their pain whispers through our body as if it were ours. In such a space, responsiveness becomes instinctive. He notices when your mood shifts before you even express it. He picks up on what you leave unspoken. He makes you feel seen in your invisible moments. These aren't rehearsed behaviors. These are signs that your emotional reality has become a priority in his inner world. This kind of emotional presence is rare because it demands vulnerability. To respond, one must pause and feel. And for many, especially those conditioned to equate emotion with weakness, this is terrifying. But when a man begins to love with depth and awareness, he chooses to step beyond his fear. He allows himself to be still enough to notice what truly matters. And that's where you see the difference, not in the big romantic gestures, but in the way he adjusts his energy to soothe yours, in the way he holds space for your truth, even when it makes him uncomfortable. Responsiveness is quiet but powerful. It's in the way he listens not just to your words but to your tone, how he answers your anxiety, not with logic but with calm presence. When your eyes look tired, and he offers softness without you asking. When your silence speaks, and he chooses to stay rather than walk away. These are not ordinary acts. They are signs of a man whose heart is no longer orbiting only around his own needs. His emotional gravity has shifted. He orbits you now too. And what drives this shift on a neurological level is neuroassociation, the deep psychological imprinting that happens when an experience, person, or feeling becomes tied to emotional meaning in the brain. The moment you become emotionally significant to him, his brain begins to code your presence with emotion. Your voice, your expressions, your needs, they become neurological cues that evoke feelings, memories, and instinctual responses. You are no longer just a person in his life, you are a stimulus, a symbol, a part of his emotional architecture. This imprinting is not conscious. It builds quietly, over time, through repeated emotional experiences, through shared laughter, mutual vulnerability, consistent safety. Eventually, your presence evokes something in him that he cannot fully explain but cannot deny either. He thinks of you during ordinary moments. Your comfort becomes linked to his peace. Your emotional well-being becomes tethered to his own. This is neuroassociation at work. It rewires his priorities. It alters his reflexes, and it reveals itself through spontaneous acts of care. So when he checks in on you without a reason, when he remembers something you said weeks ago that even you forgot, when he shifts plans to accommodate your emotional state, these are not strategies to impress. They are signs of emotional imprinting. His brain has paired you with meaning. He doesn't do these things for you. He does them because something in him responds to you. You have become a reference point for emotional significance in his life. And this is where so many misinterpret love. They look for grand gestures, for dramatic declarations, for cinematic moments. But real love, deep love, lasting love, it is embedded in the ordinary. It is in the way he says your name with a softness he doesn't use with anyone else, in how he instinctively offers comfort when you're tired, in how your sadness interrupts his peace. These aren't acts of obligation, they are symptoms of association. You have become emotionally tied to his sense of safety, of warmth, of home. This is not obsession, nor is it dependence. It is connection, the real neurochemical, psychological kind. When love is genuine, it alters how a man's brain functions in relation to you. You are no longer just someone he sees. You are someone he feels. And because of that, he begins to respond with a depth that cannot be faked. A man can mimic affection with words, but he cannot fake the reflexes of care that come from deep emotional association. His body responds before his mouth speaks. His presence comforts before he even knows what's wrong.
This is the truth of emotional imprinting. So if you ever doubt his feelings, stop listening to what he says. Watch what he does when you're not looking. Notice how he responds to your vulnerability. Observe how your emotional state affects his behavior. Does he become softer when you need gentleness? Does he shift from self-focus to attunement when you're hurting? These aren't conscious decisions. These are emotional reflexes, rooted in neuroassociation. His brain has made a place for you, and that place has become sacred. This is where the truest love resides, not in what is promised, but in what is reflexive. In how he shows up not when it's easy, but when you're not your best. In how he responds to your needs, even when they interrupt his comfort. That is when you know you have become more than a name in his phone. You have become a part of his emotional world, his inner map, the space his nervous system calls familiar. And in that space, the love is no longer something he gives, it's something he becomes. There is something profoundly transformative that happens when love ceases to be a performance and begins to take root in the quiet soil of authenticity. Many spend their lives looking for love in words, gestures, promises, but they forget to look at themselves, at the silent ways in which they either nurture or starve the connection they so deeply desire. You see, in any emotional exchange, the mirror is always present. What we give reflects back to us, not always immediately, but inevitably. When someone opens their emotional world, even subtly, and we meet it with safety instead of judgment, presence instead of distraction, that connection deepens in ways that words alone can never achieve. The human heart is exquisitely sensitive to energy. When a man offers a glimpse into his internal world, not with a confession, but with a gesture, a look, a moment of nervous vulnerability, it is not simply a test of attention. It is a request. Can I trust you with this fragile part of me? And the way we respond in that very moment becomes the foundation on which intimacy either flourishes or collapses. If we respond with awareness, with stillness, with emotional generosity, we do not just comfort him, we teach his nervous system that it is safe to love here. So often we think that relationships are built through effort, and effort matters, yes, but the truth is more subtle. Bonds are built in micro moments, in the unspoken reassurance during silence, in the way we hold eye contact when they look uncertain, in how we let someone be imperfect without retreating. If he shows you a part of himself that is unpolished, clumsy, or even hesitant, and you welcome it with calm curiosity rather than control, you are not just responding, you are allowing his emotional reality to exist alongside yours without shame. And that is one of the rarest gifts anyone can offer. This is where the mirror becomes a teacher. The more we can cultivate emotional safety within ourselves, the more safety we project outward. Our energy, our gaze, our posture, all become invitations or warning. We either say your truth is safe here or we say hide it away. I can't hold it. There is no neutral space. The body always communicates what the heart believes, and the other person, whether they are conscious of it or not, receives that message. So ask yourself, when someone you care for stumbles emotionally, do you become more open, more grounded, or do you subtly pull away, try to fix or rush the discomfort? To be truly present in another's emotional space, you must first become fluent in your own. You must understand the language of your own silence, your own vulnerability, your own longing. Otherwise, you will misread his gestures. You will demand reassurance where none is needed, interpret pauses as rejection, and push away the very closeness you are aching for. But when you are grounded in your own emotional truth, you stop needing certainty from others. You start recognizing love, not by its volume, but by its vibration. And when his gestures speak, when he brushes your hair behind your ear, without thinking, when he notices your anxiety before you speak of it, when he changes his plans because you needed more time, it is in your hands to meet that with awareness. If you dismiss it, if you minimize it, if you respond from past wounds instead of present clarity, you interrupt the flow. But if you receive it with stillness, gratitude, and a kind of sacred noticing, you don't just acknowledge him, you expand him. You become the mirror that says your care matters, your presence is felt, and your effort is seen. And then something even more extraordinary begins to unfold. The relationship stops being a performance and becomes a sanctuary. Both people begin to relax into a deeper rhythm, no longer bound by fear or needing to be impressive. His nervous system no longer flinches in intimacy. Yours no longer demands proof. Love becomes not a negotiation, but a shared frequency. You don't seek to change each other. You begin to reflect each other's best parts, simply by being present and real. This leads us into the last and most poetic truth of all, that love, when it is real, finds a physical form through behavior and presence. It does not stay trapped in imagination or fantasy. It spills out through the way he looks at you when he thinks you're not noticing. It lives in the way he folds the blanket around you when you fall asleep on the couch. It sings in the way he offers silence when you need to cry, and holds it without trying to fix it. These are not grand gestures. They are not planned. They are the physical embodiments of a soul that has chosen to stay. Too many people wait for declarations, unaware that they are already living inside someone's quiet commitment. They overlook the significance of the way he reaches out, not with fireworks, but with consistency. Because we have been conditioned to expect love to announce itself loudly, we miss the quiet miracles happening in the everyday moments. But the soul does not speak in shouts, it whispers. And if you're not listening closely, you will miss the most beautiful parts of being loved. And you must understand this too. Love that is real doesn't have to be chased. It shows up, again and again, even in discomfort, even in uncertainty, especially when things are hard. He won't always have the perfect words, but his behavior will say, "I'm still here." And that matters more than anything else. The way someone chooses to stay, not when it's convenient, but when it's challenging, is the clearest evidence of emotional depth. That is love made visible. What makes it sacred is not perfection, it's presence. It's how he continues to show up in small ways, how your pain touches him deeply, how his gestures reflect a silent vow. You matter to me, not because of what you do, not because of how you look, but simply because of who you are when you're most unguarded. And that is where love, in its purest form, lives. Not in fantasy, not in fear, but in the quiet choices made over and over again, in the language of gesture, in the presence of truth. Here's where the power truly lies. When you become aware of these micro behaviors, you no longer seek clarity through his words. You begin to read his truth through his energy. You become emotionally fluent. The hand he places on your back in a crowded room, the way he waits in silence to see how you feel, that nervous laugh when he's trying to protect his vulnerability. Each gesture is a page from his emotional diary. But never forget this. You are the mirror. The way you respond to his gestures will either nurture that emotional connection or starve it. When he opens up, even subtly, and you offer emotional safety, it creates a loop of trust. This is where real connection is born, not from intense passion, but from consistent, authentic presence. So the next time you're confused, pause. Don't analyze his texts. Watch his body when he's with you. Observe how he moves around you. When he thinks you're not watching, does his energy pull closer or retreat? Does his gesture protect, reassure, or distance? His true feelings aren't hidden. They're reflected in his physical instinct. Because love, when real, is never entirely silent. It speaks in the way he shows up, the way he chooses your comfort over his ego, the way he stays when your mood isn't perfect. Those gestures aren't random, they're emotional evidence. And remember this, when someone's heart beats for you, the body always follows. If you found yourself nodding during this, it's because deep down, you've felt these moments. You've seen that unspoken affection, that one meaningful gesture. So now, I want to hear from you. What signs have you noticed that revealed someone's true feeling? What topics do you want me to uncover next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, if this message touched something deep within you, share it with someone who needs this reminder. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more emotionally intelligent relationship advice that speaks to your soul. Your journey toward clarity and connection starts here. Let's grow, evolve, and love smarter together. Subscribe now, hit the bell icon for updates, and be a part of this transformative journey in understanding love and the human heart.